Hello one and hello all. Welcome one more time here on your channel. We can't call this an afternoon drive. It's going way towards the evening time now. It's going way towards the evening time. I want to greet you and I want to welcome you one and all one more time here on your Forms of Thought channel, where we are thinking, processing, and making those critical inquiries on our station here. Nomkosi umageba ulapa kumfa medisi kona da mukala ha. That is from Gomez himself. Molo Chigaromboko. That is from Nyoni, Manjengwe, Charles Jacob, Elizabeth, Louis. Oh well. I'm happy to be seeing so many of you even so late in the evening. But as you all know, we are now. I'm still in prison. Maybe that's why I'm dressed up like a prisoner. I know I'm still in the Facebook prison here. I've managed to smuggle my way through the back doors of Facebook just to be able to say something to all of us tonight. And I'm happy. I'm by no means sad. Up spirit, strong. While Jacob Zuma is in prison, also doing his press-ups. I'm also in the Facebook prison doing my press-ups so that I can stay healthy and waiting for my release. I think my release date is around the 12th of this month. That's when I'll be released from this Facebook prison. We want to send our greetings and strength to our brothers in the Biafra in Nigeria, who have started one of the biggest movements that I think that all of us as Africa are going to be influenced when Nigeria finally throws away the federal government structures as they are returning to their roots of African governance systems. And what Biafra is doing, that is what the entire Africa must be doing. The whole issue of us waiting for colonial systems to be driving our agenda is proving to be a non-starter. And Nigeria being one of the biggest populations in Africa, where we have the greatest number of Africans, black Africans, like in the whole world. Nigeria, I think, sits about 270 million plus Africans within one colonial state. Going back to Biafra is critical. And if Nigeria goes back to Biafra, then Tanzania must go back to Chama cha Mapinduzi, and Kenya must go back to what do they call their liberation, by the way, right there, the Mau Mau principles. And Zimbabwe must go back to Chimurenga, and South Africa must go back to Azania, Mutanya, original concepts of governance. That's where our solutions belong as Africans. As long as we think that the European who has caused us the mess will give us solutions, we are going nowhere. Uganda, we challenge you to go back again to your original. We challenge Congo to go back. You see, there's something you must understand, my people. I don't care who is a revolutionary in your country, whether they are a young revolutionary organization, or whether they are a left or a right, Democrat or Republican, etc. The issue is who is sponsoring them. And after you've discovered who is sponsoring them, as long as they are still thinking that they can run the politics of that country based on the colonial infrastructure, the colonial instruments, the colonial governance systems, there is no change that will be coming to your country in a short term and in the long term. Because as long as opposition deems to topple the present government to implement the same constitution, you're going nowhere, guys. We're going nowhere. And I want to, for this night, to uplift Nigeria, the Biafra kingdom, going back to the original, Oduduwo, as they call it, Oduduwo, the original Oduduwo. That is what it was before the colonialists called it Nigeria. And these people who come to countries and they name the countries, they name the people, they determine the functions of those countries, the politics of those countries, and etc. We messed up as Africans. And I will say it again on this platform, that our greatest weakness as Africans are the educated Africans. The educated Africans are the problem, because we cannot afford a revolution. We cannot afford to change the system, because when we change the system as the educated people, we are forfeiting our jobs as CEOs, as CFOs, as human resource directors. We are forfeiting our jobs as ministers, as assistant ministers. We actually move over into parliamentary organizational hierarchies to maintain colonial systems, because we are now the directors. Take note of the word. We are directing, we are managing, we are Uncle Toms. Educated people are the Uncle Toms in the system who are making sure that the colonial system survives and sustains. All these deals that are raping the African economy, all these vaccines that are killing the African people, all these clothes, second-hand clothes that are being dumped on the African continent, and the theft that is going with it, is not going on in the hands only of the white people. Yes, the white people are the sponsors, but the black people are the cooperatives, they are the corruptees who are involved in these corrupt systems. Therefore, as Africans, we needed to start talking, how are Africans abusing Africans? And by the way, I forgive you as African leaders. I forgive you because you don't understand the extent of a colonial system, that no matter how much education you have, you can do very little to transform the lives of your people, as long as the system in which you are functioning in remains as a colonial system. So we can sit in parliament, comrade, out of order, comrade, out of order, hey, I don't recognize you, comrade, comrade, I don't recognize you, I don't recognize you. And we go in our parliaments and we argue about how many legs does a grasshopper have. We go and argue which section of the Constitution does land belong to, which section of the Constitution do indigenous people belong to, which section of the Constitution the minerals belong to, according to section so and so, and we argue for 3, 4, 5 years when we are still in the parliament. By the time we finish up our terms in parliament, you'll be shocked that the legislative framework, the policies, subsections of those policies of running our own country are still in the hands of the colonial system. We told our people, by the way, when you were campaigning, you were telling the people that when you get into power, you're going to change these things. You're going to change these things. And then you get into power, and then they give you some money. You forget what you promised the people at the back, get back in the system, and you maintain the very same system. You look at our countries, beautiful countries such as Kenya, look at our countries such as Rwanda and etc. With all due respect to the seeming development that is happening, the only day I'll take African governments and African leaders seriously is the day when they wake up. Firstly, when you get into power, sue the British, sue the Germans, sue the French, sue the Italians, sue the Americans. Yes, sue them. Divorce yourself from a colonial constitution. Occupy and own foreign-owned businesses that have been looting your countries for the longest of time. Try and, by all means, to make sure that your communities own their resources and they're part and shareholders in their own resources. Show the people the balance not only of political power, economic power. Ladies and gentlemen, let's not waste our time. Let's not waste our time discussing. Yes, I would discuss the Swazi monarchy on another day. But the Swazi conundrum is founded on a principle again. When you have a monarch that walks into power with the same teeth and the same mentality that is British, then, and it does not remember where its people are, it is the same. The fact that the Swazi kingdom seemingly has failed does not mean that Benin failed. Does not mean that Muntapa failed. Does not mean that the Ethiopians failed. Does not mean that Mansa Musa failed. You need to go back again. Don't isolate a failing process, a failing kingdom in Africa, then say it means that all Africans have failed. Therefore, it's not. If Swaziland has failed, has Nigeria succeeded under democracy? Has Congo succeeded under democracy? Has Angola succeeded under democracy? Has Namibia succeeded under democracy? Has Sudan succeeded under democracy? Has Zambia succeeded under democracy? So don't laugh and make a case out of a monarchy that is in trouble. Then you want to throw a whole brush on the African continent that because Swaziland is not making it, therefore it means that all Africa will not make it. That's not true. The richest man who ever lived on the face of the continent, and the face of the entire continent and the world, Mansa Musa himself, was a king in his own space, in his own right. And having said that, therefore, let us look for things that work. Let us not be quick to criticize and look and only make examples of those that are failing. Please show me democracies that have worked. Then quickly you want to run around and say, Rwanda has made it. But Rwanda, yes, they have made it. But you also need to understand what is the involvement of Rwanda in the colonization of Congo. How many minerals that are in Congo that are going through Rwanda and going through Uganda? What is the involvement of Kagame and Museveni in the colonization of Congo, which is their own sister countries? How is Zambia shipping out stuff through Zambia, which is coming through South Africa, going back into China? Where is the cobalt going? Where are the airports that are moving out the diamonds and gold that is founded in the Republic of Congo? So don't use and make illustrations of failed monarchs as if you have illustrations of succeeding democracies. That's common sense in my world. I don't have to be worried as to who has failed. Tell me who has succeeded. If Swaziland has failed, who amongst the democratic states has succeeded? From the 1960s in Ghana to the 1994s here in South Africa, when we are getting independence in the tip of the South, you can see the traits of the colonial system in constantly managing its people. And it manages its colonies through Africans who are now the political leaders. So tonight I want us maybe just to share one or two ideas around the issue of systems of education, systems of health, systems of politics, systems of entertainment, systems of judiciary, systems of entertainment, systems of cultural empowerment, and the entire social structure that the African calls development. What is development to an African? What is development to a European? And when they say that the country is developing, it's a developing state, which part of the state is developing? Is it development that is based on the people of that country are now doing better, or the foreign businesses in that country are now making more profit? Now, Understand me very well. I'm not mixing my words here. When they say this country is developing, these are developing countries. And you go back to the GDP, you go back to the social structures, you go back to the poverty lines, you go back to infrastructure development, you go back to the education sectors, you go back to the pharmaceutical issues, you go back to entertainment, you go back to the commercial issues, and you look intently and say, in the midst of what you are calling development, the country is developing. Who is developing? Is the country developing because it now has new buildings? It now has ngorofas, like I heard the other day when I was in Kenya. They said, yeah, this is the first ngorofa in the whole of East Africa. Ngorofa is an overbridge, where these cars are going underneath and other cars are going on top. And people had to stop to appreciate the first ngorofa, the first, bypass that is in East Africa, that is built in Kenya there next to Jomo Kenyatta park there in town. And you look around and say, is development centered around the people, or development is centered around the colonial systems? Therefore, we cannot begin even to speak as Africans and say, our economy, our economy, and I've heard some people in Zimbabwe saying, our education in Zimbabwe, our education. The South Africans, this is our country, our economy. And you listen to these myopic minds bragging over what they call their economy, their country, their education. And in the midst of their education, their country, and their economy, the rules that they are using to oppress their own people are the same colonial rules. The same colonial infrastructure runs those businesses. Therefore, development is not built on social empowerment. Development is built on debt. It's built on debt. How good does your president play the foreign game so that foreign investors can actually be able to give them debt? And when they have debt, they can look good in the West, but in the backyard of their own houses, people who are living next to the resources are still languishing in poverty. I wake up this morning and I hear that one of the new cities, one of the biggest steel plants that will be built in Africa is actually going to be happening in Zimbabwe. The Chinese are putting a 1.5 kilometer steel company for manufacturing and processing steel. Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Mnangagwa, for making such an infrastructure possible. The issue is not whether you've been able to bring development in Zimbabwe for producing steel, but I have one question, just one question. That plant that you're putting in the country, how many shares do you have as a government in that plant? Of course, not undermining the government authorities who consider themselves as the nation of Zimbabwe having shares in this deal. Let's leave that for the corruption debate. Question number 2, just to add on the first one. How many shares do the Zimbabwean community have in that plant? If you can give me those 2 answers back to back and say 3%, 4%, I'll shut up and keep quiet. Because until these developments that are coming in the country, coming into the continent, recognize, appreciate, include the local people as beneficiaries, development remains as a multinational program where foreign companies come into African companies, African countries, and they have the protection of the government to eat, rob, and steal local resources at the demise of the local communities. So they're there. By the way, it's not the first time they're here. They were here in Johannesburg during the times of the gold rush. If you walk through Johannesburg right now in Marshalltown and below there, it's a ghost town. Took all the gold, they went with it. What did they leave? Come to Johannesburg. Mountains and mountains of dust. that lingers with us, that remains as our inheritance. We inherit the gold dust when the gold has been taken away. And that's all you have. You're now building up a big iron smelting plant between Mvuma and Chivu, of course, with a backdrop of a railway line or transportation that will be put between Redcliffe and Chijong, whatever they call the town. So you're going to pull all the material out and take all the iron ore, rip up all those red mountains, make up this big smelter that is moving the steel out to feed the industries of the Chinese community. Well done. You create a few jobs in this new town that you're building. But 50 years from now, 100 years from now, what will these cities look like? My 2 cents advice to my Honorable President Mnangagwa, like directly, my simple advice to you, don't celebrate the building of a steel plant and building of a new city. Now that we have the mineral, and second to that is that now we have the plant that is able to process the iron ore into steel. Mwah, well done. Please, no iron ore and steel leaves the country. 60 to 70% of that steel must be converted into industries. Industries that include the manufacturing of chassis of cars, producing products, all the various products that need the iron ore. This is where thinking is more powerful than ideas. Because yes, now you have a steel company and you can say we now can produce so much steel, but don't sell the steel. Create industries that add up to the value chain of the biggest steel industry. Must now be seen as the biggest car manufacturing industry. Yes, the biggest yellow fleet manufacturing industries, graders, tippers, and etc. Because we cannot send our steel to China, and when they bring back the steel, they are bringing it as graders and tippers and yellow fleet, which costs 1,000 more than the steel that we send to them. Therefore, when you produce and you're able to produce an infrastructure of the nature that is happening between Chivu, and it's the biggest steel manufacturing company in the whole of Africa. We don't rejoice in the biggest steel industry. We want, in the backdrop of the steel industry, to create a value chain of other processes, other manufacturing processes, inclusive to automobiles, cars, including to car parts, including, you need now to run to Germany, run to France, run to Taiwan, run etc. and get patents. If you can't get patents, let your university work to develop their own patents. China, for example, they went into Europe and they bought all those yellow fleet, etc. They brought them into the country, broke them up to pieces, found out which parts make which one. And now, 30 years later, they're producing this yellow fleet equipment with no IP. This whole rubbish of IP, intellectual property, only works as long as the Roman Dutch law is in place. When you kick out that principle out of the line, you can build your own industries, build your own utensils, build your own properties, build your own automobiles, build your own infrastructures, and own those infrastructures. And by the way, they are corrupt. You need to be corrupt around their IP also. And some of these IPs, which they call American IPs and European IPs, they don't belong to those people. Those very same people who say they own IP to viruses, own IPs to vaccines, they own IPs to manufacturing of railroads and etc. You go back and research these things and find that the white people stole these IPs from the black people. In this generation, we also need to learn how to steal. Yes, we must learn how to steal. We must learn how to steal. Because they are thieves themselves. Why must you act like a saint? And everybody around you is stealing here. They stole your gold, stole your minerals, stole your IP, and here you are trying to abide by the rules of the Roman Dutch law. Hey, to hell with the Roman Dutch law. To hell with it, and to hell with the Queen herself. And all which Britain and the Netherlands, the Court of International Justice stands for. That's a useless international justice system. What justice? What justice? Until you put Leopold to court, then I'll take you seriously. Until you put Ian Smith and Margaret Thatcher and the Queen of London to court, then I'll take you seriously. Until you take the Germans to court, then I'll take you seriously. What international justice are you talking about right now when you are still busy killing the Africans? What justice are you talking about? What justice do? So stop telling us about the rule of law, rule of law. Rule of law for what? The rule of law is only relevant as long as the law is managing the poor. We now know that. There's no law here. Law is intended to manage the poor. So when the poor go stealing, they are criminals. When the politicians go stealing, oh well, it is illicit relationships, it is scandalous, it is corruption, we are looking for a body of evidence. You still need a body of evidence when you can walk through a country like Congo and where people are amputated and where minerals are being stolen. You walk into Zambia where copper is being shipped in and out of the country and the country is poor. You're looking for evidence. You're looking for evidence. You're looking for evidence. When sewage water is running through Mbare and running through Chitungwiza, you're looking for evidence. What evidence do you want? No, we're looking for the evidence so we can have the rule of law. What rule of law are you looking for? The evidence of any system that is succeeding is measured in the lifestyles of the people and the community they profess to be leading. Therefore, we need to start looking at this thing more constructively. If the Americans, the Europeans, the British are serious about this COVID story, okay, and you cannot cope because right now all the governments can't find the vaccine because it's sold out. I have a simple solution. If you think that the COVID vaccine is the best solution, then, and you're really worried about the population of the world, then give the IP, give the patent rights to the African countries and let each country produce its own vaccine so that they can treat their own people. Then I will know that you are really interested in dealing with this COVID story. But no, you're not willing to share the IP for the vaccine. But they cannot produce it. But it is an emergency. You know, they must all come and buy from us. Now you've created a demand that the whole world wants your vaccine. You can't supply the vaccine, neither can you share the IP. And then you call that we are here to develop the community and etc. I don't buy that bull dust. It's total rubbish of the highest order. If you are serious and you think that COVID is a pandemic that is affecting the whole world, just take those nanoparticles and take those human embryos, give the University of Kenya, University of Zimbabwe, University of Vets, University of Makerere, University of Ife, give them the patent rights. Let every country develop their own vaccines. No. You're not prepared to do that as Americans, because once you give away the IP, you won't make the profit. And you want me to sit here in my adult mind to think that you are interested in the health of the African. So you create the problem. After you create the problem, you create a solution, which is the vaccine. And you're not willing to share the solution with the people that you are saying are being affected by the same problem. Why? Because as pharmaceutical companies, your money does not come from the health of the people. You make money from the sickness and the disease. Disease, by the way, that you have created in the whole world over. So we are moving into a space right now where power is now being held in the hands of the private sector. Power is now in the hands of the private sector, where private businesses, automobile, fuel businesses, pharmaceutical businesses, products, those that are handling products, and they run on these contracts in individual governments, approved by the legislation of those countries, to corrupt the politicians that are within the system. And the economies of Africa are in the hands of the private sector. Private individuals who are able to walk up to the government structures, imagine to get an election done in South Africa, I hear some rumors here that Honorable Ramaphosa had to walk away with 3 to 4 billion in his back pocket so that he could oil the system and buy everyone out of the system. Hey, comrade Swaramo. Hey, comrade Swaramo. And all these comrades, Swara. 4 billion later, the man becomes a president. Voila! And then after the man becomes president, you look at the amount of looting that the very companies that gave him the money into presidents have now spent, have now stolen, have now robbed the African economy. It's not 4 billion. We can even start talking about 500 billion. You can start talking about 60, 80 billion. We can start to figures that are mad. In other words, like fishing, you always use a small little worm and you throw it into the water there. And then when the worm bites, then you pull out. And what the fish thought would eat is a small little worm like this. But that small little worm, because there's a hook inside, when the hook goes into the stomach or into the throat of the thing, then the fisherman pulls the fish out of the water. And there is the fish, this big fish like this. But it was pulled out by a worm that small. That is how African politics is working. A few rands, a few dollars given to black people who are willing to sell out other Africans. We're not 1 million, we're not 2 million, we're not 15, we're not 600,000, we're not 200,000. Go back to the people and tell them this is the new slogan now. Hey, Zuma must fall, Ramaphosa in. Hey, Zuma must go, Ramaphosa in. Now Ramaphosa is in, they're now starting, hey, Ramaphosa must fall. We don't even know who is the next one coming. But of course, as we are talking right now, budgets are being prepared. And I hope President Ramaphosa can actually see this video. And please, prepare for your exit. They're done with you as a president. And that's a fact. It's a matter of time. In a few days from now, the streets will be running up and down that you must leave your office. Whatever you wanted to do for this government and for your people, you must just remember, after the white people are done with you, you are coming back down here to be living with us as common people. The question is, while you were in power, what did you do? The same thing I would be raising for my honorable president, ex-president, and Tate Jacob Zuma. In the midst of the revolution that he had, there's only one mistake that he made. He tried to beat the Boers and the Afrikaners in their own game, using their own constitutional system to fight them. And they proved him wrong. After the whole conversation in the thing, you're trying to protect the whites, let's create a democratic society, a non-sexist, a non-racial, non-this, the power of the constitution, but with the same constitution, they again came back and bite up your backside, which is a fact. And I want to make an announcement. Very clear announcement. That President Ramaphosa is on his way out. The stampede that is now happening on the grassroots is that people have been told, and though you're not the one who created the COVID problem, but because you protected the colonial masters when they were destroying the African businesses and the African economy, now the people at the bottom no longer have confidence in you, your business partners have confidence in you, but you're politically compromised with the common people, and they will not allow you to remain in power. The best thing for them to do is to remove you in power now and get someone else who will bring a new agenda on the South African economy. So start picking your bags. That's a fact. Put this on record. Put this on record. You will play this tape a few years from now. You are on your way out, Dr. Ramaphosa. If there is anything that you wanted to start thinking and doing, start doing it now. Because in the next couple of months, you better start cleaning up your shoes and leave the government space. They're done with you. You have achieved for them that which they wanted you to achieve. And you come on my site again and you call me a propagandist, Mr. Mzeti Mzansi. I will help you. If you don't want propaganda, please go back to your corner and sit there. I don't appreciate it. We're here as open thinkers who are developing thought patterns. How do we develop? You call me a propagandist You don't know what propaganda was behind Nelson Mandela. You don't know what propaganda was behind Kgalema Motlanthe. You don't know what propaganda was behind Thabo Mbeki. You don't know what propaganda was behind Jacob Zuma. You don't know what propaganda is behind Ramaphosa. And you woke up here and say propagandist. The level of our educated blacks when it comes to seeing the bigger picture, it's appalling. It's appalling. Because you will always think that the European system loves you, and Tate Lindeli Samset Mzansi. You think that the white man loves you. You even think in your own mind that apartheid was better than revolution. We are talking about is responsible right now of changing and transforming the narrative from a neo-colonialist environment to a new based environment where Africans are not workers, but Africans are owners of their own economies, owners of their own infrastructures, owners of their own resources. And there's no development that we can be talking about on the African continent until we also as Africans own our own resources. When I say that we must own our own resources, then you call me a propagandist. Do not be started, you call me a propagandist, because I'm telling you what you don't want to hear. Please exit the page, Fetu Lindeliswa. Please exit the page. Go and join an ANC page. Go and find a DA page or an EFF page, somewhere there. Go and join them there. Don't come around here and tell me your neo-colonialistic views of patronizing me and telling me that I cannot think because I'll be scared of being called a propagandist. Some people call me also what they call the other day a conspiracy theorist. Conspiracy is when white people are robbing your resources. Conspiracy is when black politicians are in bed with European multinational companies. Conspiracies is when we think that we're the president and yet we have a brown envelope boy. Conspiracy is when African leaders are being used by the European system to abuse their own people. That is the conspiracy you need to talk about. And when you are serious, when you are serious about propaganda, you need to go and find out how much propaganda has the white man put in your head before you come on my site here and tell me a piece of your second-hand recycled mindset, which is impoverished with thought processes that are developing the African continent. Conspiracy is the abuse of the African in the hands of the African. Voting is conspiracy. Yes. Corona and COVID is a conspiracy. Yes. Stock exchange, JSE, a conspiracy. New World Order, a conspiracy. Global Village, that's a conspiracy. But when you have a conspiracy and you're able to put money behind it, it changes from conspiracy to propaganda, from propaganda to truth, from truth to media, from media to education, from education to religion. When people, another day I must develop this thought for you. By the time it is religion, when everybody in the world now accepts that this is the truth, that Africans had no history until the European man came. Now, is that truth or that's a conspiracy? If I can ask Mzansi, is that truth or that's a conspiracy? That Africans did not exist until Van Riebeck arrived here. Is that truth or conspiracy? Is it truth or conspiracy that for you to be a president, you need financiers who must give you money to get into power? Is that conspiracy? Is it conspiracy that when you are a leader of a country, you must uphold the constitution that is colonial, that is a Roman Dutch law? Is that conspiracy? Is it conspiracy that local medicine cannot be approved, but foreign medicines will be approved even without the local bodies approving those medicines? Is that conspiracy? Don't tell me that they approved them. Yes, they approved, they approved. You're lying, because the same system that they build for you, when they bring their own stuff, they will approve it. You have local medicines that have been sitting in the yards here 10, 15, 20 years that have not been approved yet. COVID comes in 2 weeks, it is approved. So the question, which board of directors are they using? Is it the same board of directors that was here 2 years ago? Or is it a new board of directors? Or is there political will? No, there's English now. Where there is a political will, the judiciary system will always obey. So the politicians create the wheel that can override the judicial system and make the wheels move faster when it profits the politicians. That's a fact. When it does not profit the politicians, your files and your patterns will be rotting in the office of the medicine approval, etc., for the couple of years. You want to see what is conspiracy? Come up with 1,000 people with a trade union or with a stock fair, and we now say, no, we are all now collecting 1,000 rand each. 1,000 of us, we are making about $1 million a month. We want to open a bank. You want to know conspiracy? It's your money, it's your investment, it's your organization. When you walk up to the very FICA, Financial Information Service, whatever board, and you say we are raising $1 million a month, tell me how many years it will take you to open up your first bank. Try that when I'm Zanzi. Try that. And you want to talk about conspiracy. Take some Panadol, please, Mzansi. Take some Panadol. Take some Panadol and lots of cold water and slow down. You will find out that conspiracy is when the African community does not have access to resources. That is real conspiracy. Let me read your comment. Tate Maponga, you once advocated got an African way, which was exactly similar to the JSE in the form of livestock. I was keen, but now you've turned against it. I'm not creating. When I listen, man, you torture me with. You torture me. It's not a JSE. It's not a stock fair. It's a farming initiative. We're just finalizing buying the farms and etc., which is taking us longer. Those who want to invest in terms of buying cows, you buy your 25, 10 cows and look after them. Sell them when you want to sell them. Create a lobola strategy behind that. It's a total different thing. If you want the ideas, please inbox me and get correct information. You don't come and just want to talk information in such a fashion. You can ask me, how is it going to work? How was it going to work? I'll give you information if you need that information to start your own business. You don't come around on this other end again and throw away some stuff. But conspiracy theories, they are based on this methodology where the local and common community seemingly does not have access into their own resources. And this concept that I wanted to start, the concept of farming and etc., was literally founded on this idea that if we can put our money and our resources towards breeding cattle and build these cattle into a wealth base, then with the wealth base, we could convert that into a food chain, from food to skins, to the medicines, to land, to restaurants, and etc., and create a value chain. Yes, I blurted out the idea, but I needed to go back a little bit and frame it nicely and put the building blocks together. Me, Noah Kwevu, and other guys in the Northern Cape, we are at a very advanced stage polishing that idea. And we're not borrowing money from anybody, so it must take us time, enough time to build that ideology. But I don't think I wanted to start up this conversation in terms of sharing those ideas. And Mzansi insists they want to manipulate the conversation so that I could answer them on what they want and etc. If you want something, Mzansi, my numbers are right there on the box. You can phone me, you can WhatsApp me, and we can talk outside. But until the African people are able to change the narrative, change the systems of education, systems of health, systems of politics, change the system. Otherwise, you'll be swapping hyenas with foxes. Putting new leaders who maintain the same system brings no change. This is my only problem with Julius Malema. This is my only problem with Chamisa. Only problem is that their desire to get into power does not come with a language that wants to change the very system that Zuma, Ramaphosa, Mukande, and Mbeki has failed under, including Mandela. And by the way, other people say, leave this alone. We can leave it alone. But when you look back into 60 years of Ghana, 62 years, 42, 45 years of Zimbabwe, you are now in 25 years in South Africa. and you think that the narrative will change, you must be smoking some very heavy drugs, because the European system, as long as it does not change, the African leader will never succeed under it until he becomes a lapdog in the hands of the white man to manage the multinational businesses that have been left in those countries. That's my 2 cents worth. If you have any suggestions, opposing ideas, that's what life is all about. Sharing ideas. Share your ideas also. We compare the ideas. And that's how, as human beings, we think. And here we are on Farmers of Thought, sharpening our corridors of thinking, developing new paradigms, looking backwards, understanding the present, and reformulating the future for ourselves, writing our own narrative to build the Africa that we want to live in. For today, change the systems. Change the systems. Don't change the riders of the horse. Change the horse. Change the horse. The horse